Thanks for joining us this afternoon. We're going to have a nice conversation with Ahmet, Öğüt, and Chus Martinez on the occasion of Ahmet's new book called Tips and Tricks. And so let me start with some of the basics. Ahmet was born in 1981 in Diyarbakir. He represented Turkey at the Pavilion in Venice in 2009. In 2012, he initiated the foundation of Salon University in London at Tate Modern and Delphina Foundation, and had work in the 5th Berlin Biennial, 9th Istanbul Biennial, and so on. Thank you, Ahmet, for coming. And also, let me introduce Chus Martinez, which many of you probably already know. She just took a job here in Basel as head of the Institute of Art and Academy, head of the Institute of Art at the Academy of Art and Design here in Basel. Thank you, Chus.
Thank you.
And also, I want to just put out sort of the bare facts about the book. The book was published by Moose in collaboration with Kunstlerhaus Stuttgart, the text by Adnan Yildiz, some conversations by Ute Mettebauer and Hans-Ulrich Oberst with Ahmet, and it was edited by Jerden Erdem, who is here with us today, and with lots of help from Aisha Ermur, her friend who helped us print it. So thank you all of you for helping making this book happen. So let's get started. I think we'd like to start with talking about your work. And we have an artwork that we can get right into. The first one is Things We Count.
Yeah, first of all, thanks everybody in these busy days coming here, being with us. And thanks to Mary, Chus, and everybody else actually involved. Well, this was 2 years of adventure, try to put together a monography like this. So today I will try to explain why there was a reason to have a book like this when there are so many books around. And I already have a few catalogs, but they're mostly directly connected to particular shows. So I was imagining finally having a book, a timeless book, and I hope this will be the one which is timeless. It includes a period of 10 years of work, and that was the other important part. And what is missing in a practice like mine, that there's never enough time to look back the entire practice and think it as an archive and go through it, and really instead of very basic categories like looking at chronologically the works or a medium-based understanding of the practice, we thought of thinking another way, creating another way, and looking entire practice through chapters. So I don't know if I should go through all the chapters, but we have books here. Maybe we can also circulate around. And you will see there are chapters. We try to come up with titles for each chapter. So this is one of the chapters, Filmic Memory. And it's not only including video works, but it has another focus, let's say. But here I tried to pick one work from each chapter so I can talk about them. But maybe we go with more like a conversation. Maybe Chus have some questions, and then I can continue.
Yes, I think it's very interesting because it's not a catalog, as you said, and you are kind of offering the reader the possibility of entering through the work, which is like 10 years of the work, through categories that you kind of probably invented by doing it. No, when you were doing the book, you were kind of finding out ways of naming differences in between the different works. So it's an amazing book for many reasons. One is because you really kind of have the opportunity to trace the practice of an artist for 10 years. Second, because you have yourself the possibility of relating that practice with other artistic practices in Turkey and outside Turkey. So it offers an impressive reflection upon many similarities and families, because he has been giving us that kind of effort already done. And then because it actually poses a very important question. What is next when you have ordered your works and you have presented it in such a way? So what happened after doing a book like that, Ahmet?
Well, I think I see this as the beginning of the entire research. Have to look back. So I really needed to take a moment, not running after new commissions and always this quick research. So I wanted to really change the way it goes. And well, some of the recent projects that are lifetime engagements. And there's a category now in the book. I can talk about lifetime engagements since last 3 years. And this is a lot of work. And not only a lot of work from my side, but everybody else involving a lot of work from the institutions and every other person involving that I collaborate. So I see this as a beginning, and actually next year we will really, really take time to think of an exhibition, including works selected from these last 10 years, and creating the show, designing the show around these categories, and somehow linking them and creating this new narrative. So this is something what I always used to do in solo shows without really thinking about it, but I always wanted to have a selection of works and a new work in addition, site-specifically that I would think specifically for that exhibition or that city or that country. So I would look back to these solo shows, and each one of them looks very different, although there are same works involved in many of them often. But now, really seriously, I need to take time, and I want to do it many different ways. So book was one of them, and the exhibition will be maybe the second part, really thinking together with the actual works and bringing them together. And also there is a collaboration. So because I do collaborate often, and when I look back, I realize, so next year I will make a project bringing together around like 15 people that I have collaborated last 10 years. There are non-art background people. They come from different disciplines, or they do different jobs. I did collaborate with them maybe one time or maybe several times, or maybe like still ongoing collaborations. So there will be a project involving a fireman, a lawyer, an account, auctioneer, and so on.
In Turkey?
No, this will be in London. So it will be an experiment, bringing them together, and they will think through the collaboration. So it will be called Happy Together, Collaborators Collaborating. So this will be another way of thinking thinking through the archive, but in a really performative way. So book is different, publication is different, and how we can make publications timeless, this is very important. So it can be an independent thing, and it can have a life afterwards. It shouldn't die the moment it's published. And then the exhibition, the exhibition has a lot of practical sides as well. Like I have a lot of works that are here and there, and they never came together, and I just keep them circulating around because I don't know where to put them or things like that. So all this story, like where you store the works, what happens to them afterwards, after the project ends. So these are the 3 different approaches I really want to take time during next year and focus.
I think we often celebrate when an exhibition opens, no? But we don't celebrate the same manner when a book gets published. And also, it's interesting that we sometimes think, oh my God, it's just a book. But on the other hand, think about the many contexts where the book still has an impressive relevance, because it's true that it's just a book, but it's also a way of collecting a collective memory and writing our history in a different way. So this book is probably impressively important for a full generation of artists in Turkey, that they see themselves reflected into the time of another artist. So in how far have you done this book for the artists? Like, it's almost for your peers. When you have it in the hands, you have the impression that this book is for other artists to look at it.
Yeah, of course, I'm not just publishing it just for my own learning process, but I think it's more like a collective learning process. Often you just focus on particular projects and you spend time with them, or people involved with those projects. But actually, when they all come together, it's more pedagogic right? So we should never ignore the pedagogic side of any artist's practice, as long as it's sustainable.
Of course, I have more information than you in the audience, but he was telling me yesterday that he is kind of planning a project in Istanbul that involves some sort of informal school or a school initiated by an artist. So in going and flipping through the book, I did have that in mind. So I'm not even saying that it's a pedagogy because I don't know what pedagogy means really, but I think that it's really interesting. It has this presentational modus of presenting the work in a quite direct way, which is very beautiful because there is some text that are 2 or 3 interviews and interventions of Ahmet, so you can sense how he has been thinking through the work. But the book is not constructed around a critical apparatus; it's constructed around a presentation of the work. And this has some sincerity that's almost like a live studio visit, that it functions as a tool, that you could imagine it being really, really useful for this school that you have been envisioning, because it has really an openness and a sharing kind of attitude towards the publishing, which is uncommon.
Yeah, I mean, again, thinking about publications, also different ways, like artist books, catalogs, and book. Like this is monography, so the difference is very important, the difference between. Nowadays I don't do much, but I used to do a lot of artist books as well, and really think about what's the difference. It's an artwork itself, so it's a space. And when we think it as a space, then definitely those questions come immediately after
But
that.
normally, I think, if you think about a book, a monography, it normally is the institution and the art critic or the curator that selects the works and does the monography. So I think it's really interesting that an artist decided to do a monography on its own work. And also now that we are so accustomed to publications that are very, very playful with the type, very playful with the paper, very playful, and then everything becomes a project. I kind of like the fact that it's anachronic, because this book is not a project, and it is. I think it is a presentation. And this moment of anachronism of a book that presents the work, it's political. So there is reasons for doing that. So even in the aesthetics, yesterday we were commenting on the fact that all the paper is the same, the paper of the printing and the paper of the text, which is almost kind of uncommon nowadays. There is so many possibilities. You are printing in Europe that you could actually do wherever you wanted, put 20 papers. But still, in some of the countries it's not that possible, but it's not even a possibility of being it possible or not. It's just it's a simplicity of this straightforwardness, which is quite interesting.
I mean, in fact, there's another thing with the book that is really based on collaboration. Although I try to involve for the first time in a publication, beside
an
having
artist
an
collective.
artist.
The book has been defined by an artist collective.
Yes, if you think of like it's printed in Istanbul, distributor is from Italy, designed by NSK design section in Ljubljana in Slovenia. So it's designed in Ljubljana, distribution is from Italy and printed in Istanbul, and now we are in Basel. So why it's happening this way? Because it's actually the editor based in New York. So why it's like that? Because it's this basically the friendship and the collaboration, the nature of collaboration. Because nothing comes out of nothing. So it's not like this professional work that you just pick designer and editor. There are many publications done that way. Even if I wish to do, I never do anything that way. So it's always depends on who I'm working with or thinking together. It's actually thinking together and being ready to collaborate at the very moment. So although it took a long time, it's actually an adventure to try to bring a book like that together, and especially in that kind of network, like everybody is elsewhere.
Can you explain to the audience your idea for your proposal of an artist school?
The one in Istanbul.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I talked about long-term engagements. And the first one was Silent University in 2012. It started, so it's still ongoing. It's not so easy to keep it like still ongoing because it started with a collaboration. It was only supposed to continue 1 year, And now it's happening in 3 different cities, and it's becoming more autonomous and being established independently in 2 other cities, so it will become 5. And to come to this process, it was not easy, and I had to rediscover how a project like that can start as a project or workshop or a residency and turn into a small-scale organization. So this was a really important learning process, and also looking at this other gesture-based or filmic works or installations and so on. It looks like maybe unrelated, but it's a very important learning process.
But perhaps you can describe a little bit what the university in itself is. Meaning,
Yeah.
it's a very unique project where the teachers are those that actually.
Yeah, I mean, the story of this project is very long, so I try to explain the core element, that is all the teachers and consultants that are asylum seekers with professional qualification, but that is not recognized where they are. They are often undocumented as well, so they become lecturers and consultants within this university. And this university exists through collaborations, often temporary collaborations, and turning into long-term collaboration with various institutions, not only art institutions, but community organizations and academies as well. So it was, in that way, very, very important learning process. And when thinking back and think about Istanbul as someone who had to be away, busy with other projects elsewhere, always commissioned elsewhere, where, like, how can I self-initiate something in Istanbul and find time for it, go back and do something that is long-term, which I wish to do since very long time. So I thought now I just should not wait anymore and start doing it. So this summer I'm starting, having a space in Istanbul hosted by an institution now, but it's an autonomous school, very different than Silent University, because I was thinking about the urgency. What is urgency? I mean, Silent University is a global urgency. This is a very common problem you can witness in many Western countries especially. And it's a big, big problem, big issue. So it could be a modality that could be adapted in many different countries, and the result could be slightly different, but it's a very common issue. Opposite to that, I also like to think locally. So in Istanbul, what I thought it's more urgent that I can actually do something about, think of art education, art-related education. So let's not just say art, but art-related education or culture studies. So I thought of this more modest, small-scale, one-to-one alternative model of artist-initiated school that could make sense if I do it right now in Turkey. And maybe Silent University also can happen, or it could be linked, because this is a project.
You never did the Silent University in Turkey?
No, I mean, it's not done yet. It really needs a big commitment from institutions, like long-term commitments. I don't want to start it in the same way it started in London, first based on short-term engagement, commitment, because at the end then the community is there and I am there and other people involved, and we try to keep it alive. Instead of that, I really especially started very carefully in Turkey, maybe not in Istanbul even, or southeast, where there is a lot of Syrian refugees nowadays around coming in Turkey.
Right, because language is a key element of the Silent University.
Yeah, there are many key elements of Silent University. That is that undocumented people, they have to. They
Can you
are
go
asked
back
to be.
to the other image?
They are asked to be integrated. Integrate, and first 2 things, they need the legal papers and learn the language of the country. So we try to avoid this 2 waiting process, like first having official papers and also learning the language. We don't need to wait for those, and that's lack of time is very important. So it's loss of skills, and everything is very important to keep it active and maintain. So there are many other details. So I'm not going to go so deep into that and move away from the book and the practice in general. But this is something, always a question present, and it is very helpful and important learning process to have it present, thinking other projects like in the book, there are two conversations with Hans-Uli Obris and Utemeta Bauer, and both about education, not really about talking about works. We have like around 40 works in the book, but I thought it's very important, just like this conversation here.
But it's not moving away. I think it's very important also for the future book to understand what these life-term commitments actually mean, and also I would try to understand a little bit better how it works for you also to have 2 or 3 of these projects running. Like the university, I think you initiated it and then you are following every of the process, the courses, and so on. Or how do you engage with a project like that?
I mean, I was the artist in the beginning in this project, and then later I became more like a secretary, like someone caretaker or so. So the position shifted, and it should be shifted, and I should disappear at the end. Like I am the least needed person there in this concept. So I think it's very important, like where you position yourself in commitments like that, long-term engagements and commitments like that. That actually means that the nature of project has to continue, has to last. It should not disappear, then it can become real, a project like this. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I have to involve as much and be present there. I'm actually there in the beginning to bring the principles, bring the conditions, ready, there, present, and then it just happens itself. So many other projects also happening that way. I don't usually involve. I think them as platforms, and so it could be like very quick engagement to anybody seeing those works or witnessing. But those works also don't end. They can reproduce themselves very independently, and I end up with stories like a stolen work or an attack piece of art, and a lot of stories comes back to me. And these are not my plans, but this is the nature of the works that they have. They create this conversation, and it's independent. I mean,
but it's also difficult to imagine in the future how to document it, I think, because we see pictures, we talk about it, but then a big part of what happened is happening in the experience. So what I mean is that in the 90s, when people was talking about participation, they were trusting the fact that it was enough to produce a contact surface in between communities that were normally not in contact. At that very moment, you started to invent situations that involve space and objects and people more than actually this kind of social invention that you are doing now. So you are now inventing an institutional platform that is at the same time a non-institution. It's an impossible institution, but it's also an impossible social situation because you don't imagine to be taught by people that are trying to enter your country by seeking asylum. So that kind of situation of giving help, offering education, producing a feedback in between communities that should not, that should not have this kind of conflict, but they're having it because you don't recognize the education of somebody that is not educated inside a certain region, and this is a super mega political position and so on and so forth. So in the future, like how are you going to approach all these projects, even the school, as the same way, how is the next decade of work going to look like in a book, you think?
I mean, the main thing I have learned, the difference between the practices, like some people can have good ideas, good intention. Good intention itself is not enough. That's what I learned.
No, we are against good intentions.
No, you don't have to be against, but it's not enough, definitely, and it can have negative consequences as well. So thinking about projects that involve communities directly and actually not helping them, this going away from that rhetoric and then really actually thinking about working with people and also not providing a space but becoming a space. These are the ways we need to change the ways we talk about things or art practice in general. And in this kind of, like in case of Silent University or educational project, we have to, or community involved practices, we need to get away from that very modernist in a way, target practice, and come closer to parasitic approach. And what is parasitic approach is really, if you need to, you should be able to fire yourself. If it doesn't matter if you work for an institution or if you are commissioned by an institution or if you're a director of an institution. Parasitic practice is something. Oh yeah, we are in this position. Like it's not so different than being an artist that is commissioned and invited to a completely new country. Doesn't have any knowledge about that country, go there, spend a week or two, and do something very site-specific. This is something we have to think very critical. This is something I do all the time, but I think very critical. I should not be this tourist, come there with very limited knowledge and try to teach people something about their environment or culture or whatever. It's more about really how you really can connect and get this local expertise visible. So the potential there is there, and what kind of role you can take instead of helping, using these words like helping or doing something new or site-specific. Really see yourself. It could be, when I say yourself, it could be not necessarily artist, any practitioner. Like in this other project, I work with a group of firemen. So it was one of the most nicest learning process for me. It was in Finland. So they are like real firemen. 4 or 5 firemen collaborated with me just because they like the idea, not because they are not busy. They are actually, in fact, very busy people, and what they do is quite urgent every day. And they have to be available and so on all the time. So I asked them, can we print books instead of taking care of fire? So I, in reference to Fahrenheit 451 and so on. And then they were very suspicious about this idea. I asked them to, can we reprint banned books? Banned books last like 50 years or 70.
Banned books in Finland?
No, in general. So we work with an underground publisher, and he helped choosing books. So I had this general idea, right? But it really happens because of those people. The project would never happen otherwise if they don't really take the ownership. So they really took the ownership, and firemen really produced those books, learned how to print books, went around the town. We put these printing machines, like traditional ones, folding, cutting, gluing machines in the truck, fire truck. They went around and they produced 1,500 copies of those books in 1 week, gifted people. And yeah.
But I'm always like, I like it. I think it's amazing when you hear these stories, no? Like there is so many people that are motivated by the uncommon because the common is really known and the known may be boring and life needs to be spiced in other ways, and art provides an experience of life that is twisting their own life. But the question is, what happens when you leave? There's an impressive rate of suicide in Finland.
Well...
What happens with these people when they have been participating in such a project and then you abandon the project or you go because you are an artist and you are not bored?
Of course, I question that. I'm trying to bring one of those firemen to London to discuss that, of course. And they could be, happy about it. Maybe they were happy making it and they will later think opposite.
So
they
in
will
London
be very
you are
angry.
doing a think
so the
tank.
nature of collaboration is very important. Sometimes you collaborate and you disappear, right? But there are 2 elements, of course, involving with such a project, and they think they have a very fixed job and mission and so on, and suddenly they are like expertise of printing books. And it's a skill, right? You have the skill and it stays with you. I mean, you don't have to do an event like this all the time, every day, but it brings this possibilities. Actually, it can really happen in real life, in public space. And most people in arts, like I proposed this work 2 years ago, 2 years before this, and they thought it's impossible to make it because they refused to use their imagination. And these firemen use their imagination, or people in Finland who ask me to do this project, they maybe use more imagination, and then you see it's happening. So first you use your imagination, you see it's happening, and it's over, but it's not really completely over. It could be redone, and it's not necessarily have to be redone the same way. And they create their own way of reproducing it.
Yeah, like a club.
They can start. I don't know. Like I did this intern VIP lunch for interns, and I heard that security guards took over midnight, having ping pong tournament. So people can take over and they can convert it, and this is actually a good thing. It doesn't have to be with my concept, the concept I have in mind in the beginning. And
I know, but if I understood it right, you are inviting to London. You are gonna produce the first kind of almost summit of those that collaborated with one artist, which is Ahmet Öğüt, and then all your collaborators in different projects are gonna sit down with you to kind of talk and address the idea of collaboration, which is really interesting, because I remember when the Olympics came to Barcelona, or they made them happen upon us, nobody knows. The mayor of the city said in a public appearance that what we need really is volunteers. And then everyone was silent for many days, even in the press, because nobody knew what a volunteer is, because nobody volunteered for anything in Spain before. And then the idea of a volunteer was kind of linked with something like a religion, I think. If you have a master and, an internal voice or some kind of thing. But if you're a normal person that you have a family and a work, you don't volunteer because you have been used and abused by your family all through your life. So you don't need to volunteer to any other family. So the question is like, what do you want to discover in this summit? Because it's even a very interesting question about the use of time in our societies, who is motivated to help whom and for what reasons. And then by kind of bringing them together, you are going to discover a very particular psychological profile somehow. In relationship with what? With art, which is also interesting. So what's your motivation, Ahmet? Tell us.
My motivation is that I have no idea what's going to happen, and I think this is very important, right? Same for the institution. So most institutions, they would kindly say, no, let's not do this project, let's do something else.
It is the first time you have no project for them, so they're
Sorry?
jobless. So you are inviting them, but for the first time, there is no goal, because normally they have been collaborating in a project with you, but this time they are coming as collaborators.
Yes, definitely. So it's a different position, because normally I go with an idea, right? And this time I'm not in that position, like in the beginning, set up a platform, an idea, and then see what happens. It will be the other way around. It will be totally out of my control, and I will not be in the position to intervene. So this time I do the opposite. I take my position away, that I will be audience there. Passive audience. Everybody else could be active. So I think it's really nice to give space for such thing and take risks like that, and actually find institutions that agree doing projects like that. This is the only way you can rethink the practice.
Where are you going to do it?
Where am I going to do it? I don't know if I am supposed to say publicly, but at Chus Gallery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's interesting. And do they know each other? No. The collaborators don't know each other.
No, this is the thing. I'm the only link, and they are coming from different countries. So the fireman will come from Finland, lawyer will come from New York, auctioneer will come from Amsterdam, and they will meet each other, and they are not necessarily speaking English either. So, but it's also somehow show the pattern of my practice. No, I do plans, but I don't do really like entire plan. So when I look back, I discovered that, and I thought this is a good idea. Let's try to bring them together. So
you have a secret idea for them?
No. I mean, thinking about no, I don't have a secret idea. I can't. I should not.
That's really nice. Do you think we should open it to the audience? Or?
Maybe.
Yeah. I'd love for you to talk also about some of the other parts of your practice where you're making films and sculptures and mediated sculptures and things like this. Can we touch on that a little bit before we open up to you guys?
Yeah, I don't know how long
Go
time
back
we have.
to the beginning of things we count, or maybe something else?
We can continue from this one. This is under the category everyday archaeology. I mean, these names are not so concrete, like they should be changing, by the time. Like, I don't know what works I will do next 5 years or 10 years. If I have another publication in 20 years, let's say, these categories will be named after differently. This is an example of everyday archaeology. It was kind of a playful process, like how really to bring which works under which category. So some of them could fit several categories. And this one was a performance lecture. So I am often bored with this given format of debates and lectures and artist talks, because I do all the time artist talks, and sometimes I turn artist talk in itself into a performance. So in Istanbul, that was one of this example happening last year. I invited people for a talk like this. They came, they ended up in the terrace. You see, they are standing there, and they were looking for me. I wasn't there, and I appeared just opposite on this tower, Galata Tower. And some of them noticed me, and slowly everybody noticed that I am actually there, far away. And so how they can actually hear, there was no speakers or anything, microphone. You see this little person over there, it's me. So I start giving this lecture about 5 selected works that are all attacked, stolen, stories like that. But they can't hear me.
Censored work.
Censored work. Also, they can't hear me. So what I did a collaboration with this guy, lip reader, professional, the very first professional lip reader in Turkey. He works with. He started working with disabled people and is still working with them. But then later he involved with a lot of big court cases and analyzing politicians' speeches and so on, lip reading.
So he was your translator?
He was trying to understand what I am saying. So I was at the tower, he had a binocular and tried to understand what I am saying. So there was a big interpretation about what I am saying. He tried to understand, but basically you don't get what I'm talking about, really.
And what became of it?
But he was actually pretty good, so you can understand things. And then there was another friend, Ceren, was translating into English what he's saying. So 2 times we are lost. But it was not directly about the content, and now you can hear what we are saying and you can ask questions. There it was not possible, asking questions or really hearing what I am saying. It was more about like that very moment of experiencing it. And I think we should rethink the formats, every format. Lecture, event, performance, art fair. When I was invited to do a project for an art fair, I did this intern VIP lunch, for instance. So I always think within the context. Museum, what is museum? Or what is a biennial? What does it mean? So those questions first I ask myself, and then I turn it into a collective experience. So we all together ask ourselves in a concept like this.
You still do works like that?
What kind of works?
Meaning you still do these kind of very direct interventions into a situation?
Yeah, pretty much. I actually like to balance it. It's not like there was a former practice.
No, I know, but it's good for them to know.
Yeah, it's not like that. So I never stop that. I still have this quick intervention in the public space. Not necessarily has to be named as art. Or I think about demand for structural change, institutional structural change, rethinking, reclaiming public space. These questions are still present, and all parallel. And pedagogy is very important. Like many big questions, but has to still be all parallel. So if I think that I'm all the time commissioned, so let's just do these site-specific works, commissioned works, and nothing else, I think there will be a big part of my practice will be lost and gone, and I cannot bring it back. It has to be maintained.
We have been spending some time now talking about all this, defining new situations in the space, defining new ways of miscommunicating and not only interacting, defining new ways of inventing institutions and also situations in the social. But what's the role of humor in your work? I think this is all serious, but on the other hand, what's the lightness, or does humor plays a role in the way that you are conceiving all these interventions?
Yeah, maybe we can go back to title of the book. I was thinking through like many different titles. There were like all pretentious titles. You can think of artist book titles, and I didn't want to go after that kind of title. So at the end, there's this light title, Tips and Tricks of what? We don't know. It's not clear. Usually when you look at the Tips and Tricks book, there's a really precise instructions on very precise thing. But this one doesn't announce already in the cover. But maybe when you go through the book, you can discover, and you can maybe discover different things than I try to explain there, or we try to explain there, or you can get different stories out of each work. And humor is very important. Like when you have a traumatic event happening, like if you go back to Silent University, it's a tragic situation, no? But are we supposed to be sad, or are we supposed to be always tell these traumatic stories and in a sad way, or we can actually ourselves emancipate ourselves and grant ourselves a position and celebrate that position if you want.
I know, but when sometimes the dimensions, every time that one mentions the social, and if one mentions communities into the social that are not that privileged than others, then the question of humor, or the question of celebration, or the question of joy, or the question of navigating it differently in political art, there is a rivalry in between rigor, humor, nonsense, and sense. So political art traditionally wanted to make sense, which I think it doesn't. That's why it's so good, because it does not make sense at the end. So, it should not make sense.
Political art should not make sense.
No.
Yeah, I'm not doing political art anyway, so it's not my... well, I'm into social issues, right? And every social issue has a lot to do with politics. But it can also make sense differently for each person, right? The way they experience, or they can turn themselves into something that you are not doing it, but everybody interpret differently. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's very important. And looking back, what happened in Turkey last year, Gezi resistance, for instance, we discover street poetry, lots of humor. It wasn't there. We didn't have graffiti culture properly, I mean, like in the West, and there was no, it was some quick writings on the walls, but there was not really humor or anything, or good ideas. And after that, poetry invented again, and with a lot of humor. And that's something important to look, like when really dramatic thing, tragic thing happens, yeah, and really, and then how come you can insert humor in it, and also emancipate certain things, like humor can turn into a survival thing as well, and how other potentials hidden behind humor. I think it's very important. It brings access, first of all, to the issues. Usually we avoid them, we keep distance, but humor is definitely bringing that access. That is one of the important power of it.
That and a level of humanity. I think that's the thing that gives it most access.
It brings commonality. It's interesting how Kundera always says that modernity started with Miguel de Cervantes, with El Quijote, and the whole novel is based in a misunderstanding, and it's completely humoristic, so there is absolutely nothing serious about it. And I think that this is a very good point also to invite the audience to talk or to pose questions.
Is there anyone that has any questions for Ahmet or Chus? Or questions for Jaren?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so
one question. How have you done that plane?
Sorry?
I think the plane. What have you done in it?
I haven't done anything. It's just like that. This work was filmed in.
Is it a film?
Yeah, it's a film.
But you manipulated the plane?
No. Nothing,
it was like
nothing,
that?
Nothing. It was like that. This is the biggest military airplane graveyard in the world, located in Tucson, in Arizona. It's a military zone, but you can have an appointment and go visit. So I went to visit this place. It appeared also in some movies as well. So you can also see on Google Earth how big it is. Like, I don't know, 5,000 planes, all used during different wars. Like,
it looks like a mouse?
Since Second World War. And this one looks like a mouse.
And it looks like a
Graveyard.
mouse because it's an impressive intelligence strategy of the intelligence service of the American Army, or it looks like a mouse?
We have to ask who designed these planes, right? So
All
they
of
are
them-
quite like.
All of them looks like a mouse? All of them? Like, this is really intriguing.
Well, definitely in that desert, yes. Yeah. When they are non-functional. Yeah.
We need to see that video.
It's funny to talk about the video through to images.
Yeah.
So no questions?
No, they're shy. There's one.
Achievements. Question.
It's coming, it's coming.
Conversation only starts with questions. You should know that,
Yeah.
You should have started from very beginning.
From the beginning.
I think as Chus brought up the element of humor, yeah, it's enormously important, and I see it in these planes. Maybe they got Klaus Oldenburg to design the planes. That's meant to be a joke, yeah. Thank you.
All right, great.
Okay,
This
we need
is
to finish.
amazing. Thank
But
you
good
so
to finish
much.
with a joke. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Chus, and thank you, Ahmet.
Thank you, Ahmet.
And,
And read the
also,
book, it's really good.
today, if you go over to Moose's booth in publications, they promise to give you a big discount if you buy Ahmet's book today. So thanks very much, and get the book.